Is there any chance that Rita's been banging Dukat for 7 years and you didn't know?
Oh, man, thanks for joining us this week. I have to go throw up. Oh, no, here's that thing. Dun, dun, ba, 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 bum, 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 ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba. That's not the song!
I mean, several of those notes were right. Oh, Jesus. And welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. We all have regrets. Today we are talking about Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 17, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night, which I believe describes the teaser we just did. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing okay. Speaking of the titular Rita, I'm sorry I said those words as well. She's stopping by today. CEO Jen is taking her to the dock today, and then she's gonna roll by. We're gonna do a little fire pit, and then might go out to dinner. Keith?
Well, she can tell you tales of her and Dukat. Who knows?
Yeah. Who does know? Who does know?
Yeah, that's very nice. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I wonder how long that'll last.
The beautifulness.
Yeah, the beautifulness.
I mean, I hope. I believe we are out of the cold, which I only care about because of all of my stray cats.
I don't.
So I just want to make sure they're warm.
I don't feel good about that, Keith. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you as much.
I don't know. We'll see. Perhaps we'll have a change of heart. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Which was last week's episode, and it is time to read the comments of our dear, devoted patrons. That was your...
Oh, I'm not on the thing. Okay, hold on. Let me go ahead and just put that. Sorry. I'm gonna have to. While you do this, I'm going to go fix the sounds.
I kind of like Mike having to do them all on the fly, but I think I paid for that last week and maybe this week again.
Oof.
All right. So first up, I just want to make a quick little comment. I make this comment every few episodes, and nobody listens. Nobody particularly cares when I say this. A note on spoilers, folks. All right, I think, let me try to explain this yet another way.
Okay.
Contrary to what you have watched in 100+ episodes of this show and countless hours of us talking, Mike is very, very smart.
It's true. You might not believe it, and I wouldn't myself, but it is true.
There is no evidence to back that up that you have seen on this show.
Yeah.
But guess what? Mike's really smart. So if you think you're being oblique, if you think you're being clever, if you think you're just like, oh, well, I'm not actually saying it, I'm just saying that something is coming it's gonna change guess what? Mike is very, very smart. He is going to pick up on the subtext whether or not you think you're outsmarting him, you're not. So do not even allude in a very oblique and opaque way about anything coming up into the future. Because Mike, he's on it.
It's true.
So that is my comment on the topic.
Well, let me add something to that, Keith. You know what? I'm going to further go on blast here.
Okay.
Because usually
I
it's
thought that was
you.
enough.
Usually it's you that does it. So I'll take one. Not only am I smart, but I know, and Keith knows, that you are smart. We know you know the stuff that's coming, right? You don't have to tell Keith you know, right? Because I am also, I do kind of avert my eyes when I see, and you guys do, let me give you props, you do give me spoiler warnings when you're about to drop a little tidbit. But even that, Keith says, is too much. And
well, because the context.
See, listen.
The minute you say spoiler warning.
Let me get real. Let me get real.
Yeah.
I have to go back in the therapy chair real quick.
Yeah.
Back in the day, one of my dad's tactics, right, was like when he didn't feel like screaming, yelling, he would call me up on the phone. He'd make my mom put me on the phone, and he would say, Mike, I don't want to hear your mother anymore. I can't take her nagging. Please stop whatever you're doing. I don't want any more texts from Keith being like, don't read the comments. There's spoilers. So just don't do it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You know, you might think Mike is a bit of a dum-dum, and I wouldn't blame you.
You keep saying that. It keeps coming up.
But we're all here because we love Mike, right?
Wow.
We love Mike. Do
That's
we
true.
really want to endanger Mike's enjoyment of this thing that we all love much? We all love this so much, and we all love Mike. Why would we risk, hurting Mike's enjoyment of this series? So
it's really about love,
It's about love. So yes, I know you know it's coming. Yes, I know there's a connection. We're going to talk about it. We do like a 2-hour special every single episode. We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
So don't worry, I'm not gonna forget. So all right. Anyway, you got us in a mood.
Keith,
Anyway,
we just dress the same now. Now we're just the same. We go neutral tones. We like a little layer. We like a hoodie weather. All right.
yeah. I mean, zippy.
We're very
everything.
athleisure wear today.
I mean, top to bottom, sure. All right, so here is what you had to say about Change of Heart. Joshua Cronin says, I think this is such a heartfelt episode. What Worf does just touches me and gives me all the feels. Their relationship is so genuine and the best of all Trek. Lots of feel-goods here, 83 self-sealing stem bolts from me. Jason Moe says, for so long, the world waited with great trepidation, wondering, what point will ChatGPT finally achieve full sentience?
It's close.
At long last, this question has been answered. It is the moment Mike asked ChatGPT to describe the K&M YouTube channel. Erratic. ChatGPT replied, then to prove its newfound sentience, ChatGPT literally reached into this week's episode of K&M and caused it to be the most erratic piece of content ever produced. Mike's cat getting stuck? Check. Keith getting distracted by an urgent text message? Check. Technical difficulties, the like of which the channel has never seen before? Sort of check, because you haven't listened to Oops. Mike performing an unhinged visual interpretation of the AlamarEmmys theme song? Check. I award 99 stem bolts to this wonderfully erratic episode of K&M. I award 76 stem bolts to this episode of Deep Space Nine. I can finally say, like, what was happening with my text message was one of my dear friends and mostly his wife was having a baby. Very exciting.
And I went through that edit and had to, it was like, putting that together was, we might as well just re-recording it for the time it took. But we didn't.
Not for me, though. That was the important part.
But in doing so, I did get to re-see my AlamarEmmy thing. And let me tell you, even I didn't know what was happening. And I must have fugue stated it, because when I watched that back, I absolutely peed in my pants.
Yeah. That was
not because I think I'm funny, but because I was laughing at myself. As in, that guy is really unhinged is the best word.
Unhinged. I didn't pull it up this week because we're on a clock, but Mike's interpretation of some of the bumpers from Out of Practice, worth your while.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Brian from Video Game Drive-By says, hi guys, I agree with you all on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I'm a giver. I love surprising future Mrs. Drive-By with the big dorky gifts, but hate obligatory holidays. We both agreed to not really do anything big on Valentine's Day, yet still totally did stuff because I think we can't help it. Oh, that's sweet.
That's sweet. That's love.
And we're back on track with the bangers. I love this episode for Worf. It shows what a real husband should be. And that foreshadowing at the beginning with him being one smooth MFer, I'd rather lose a bet on you than win with anyone else, is some of the finest first act foreshadowing this series has ever done. My only criticism is that they never should have been sent on the mission alone when the war is on. Agreed. It feels like a major misstep by Command to send a married couple, one half of which is Klingon with a known history for putting his cultural desires for his romantic interests over his duty in the moment. It isn't a serious flaw, but it does get worse the more you think about it. Terry Farrell and Michael Dorn totally sell the interactions. Their chemistry is energetic and palpable. And even knowing about the plot armor, the episode still keeps us in the moment with the Dax. The B plot is a throwaway that could be inserted into any episode as filler, but it does its job, and it's so fun, I ain't mad about it. 88, wife saving Sem bolts. Awesome. Kevin Miles, relationship Dax and Worf is heartwarming. Love is in the air. I give this episode 90 self-sealing stem bolts. Hibernation Pod says, such wisdom shared here today. I don't mean that in a snarky way. It's something that has always been beyond my reach. I hear what Mike is saying about marriage. I cannot even conceive of that idea to me. No way, man. Like, you never know what's coming. Hibernation Pod says, such wisdom shared here today. That's not like us. I don't mean that in a snarky way. It's something that's always been beyond my reach. I hear what Mike is saying about marriage. I cannot even conceive the idea of it happening to me. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know, buddy. Like, I certainly didn't, and here it did, and I'll tell you what, I didn't conceive of my current setup. But you know what? It's just conceive it doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, and it's gonna be awesome. I feel that I am at a point where I wouldn't ever want it to happen either. Well, never mind. I take it all back. I should probably read the whole comment before I say, it's gonna happen! If you don't want it. I don't know. Anyways, Keith ignores Mike's text more. 70 self-sealing stem bolts. Contained moment, 99 self-sealing stem bolts. Worf saying that he couldn't even stand against his own heart. Nor could we. Nor can we, nor should we. Mysterious Anne says, were you guys intentionally referencing the Pixar short Lava?
Yes.
The mysterious children required many watchings and rewatchings of that when they were little. I Lava You is very much a part of my household musical vocabulary.
Do you know that one, Keith?
Not at all.
The best Pixar short with an incredible original song. It's sort of a music video, narrative music video. It's like this ukulele song about these two tectonic plates creating like I don't want to spoil it, but I swear to you, this is not a hyperbole. Every single time I watch it, I weep.
You see, here's the thing. Like, for some people, that's a selling point. For me, that's like, I will definitely not. I don't want to weep.
You have to watch it. It's great. It's an incredible song. I think it's great songwriting, and I think it's incredible animation. You have to watch it. That's it. We're doing a lot. That's it. We haven't done one in a while, Keith. Remember we used to do a music watch along for the patrons? We're doing. We'll watch the Pixar short Lava. That will be sometime next week.
I say this about Pixar. Like, I never am like, oh, that's what I want to watch. But when I do watch it, they're amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm just never gonna choose it over, like,
that
Alien
said,
16.
Mysterious Anne. Yes, that's what I was referencing.
Mysterious Anne continues. 80 self-sealing stem bolts for this episode. Terry Farrell really is phenomenal. JD says, I do love some erratic content. See, no wonder you're with us.
He meant to type erotic, but it just he hit the wrong vowel.
Well, it happens a lot. Because you're typing with one hand, and it's hard to get it all in there.
Keith! Absolutely not.
Technical difficulty should be the name of this episode, and apparently this one as well.
Oh.
The one wormhole for me, after Dax got injured, why didn't she head back to the runabout while Worf goes to get the dude? She probably could have made it if she'd done that, but nope. It's a good 75 self-sealing stem bolts for me. I'd never considered
Pride?
Sending that. Well, I mean, by the time that Worf left, she was in pretty rough shape. Like, she couldn't go forward or backward, I think.
Yeah.
It is my interpretation of that, but I can't say for sure. Mike, wait till you get to Disco, where some of the episodes have entire paragraphs for titles. Yeah, this episode title, too long. Not good for the graphics department, and I saw they struggled with it in the episode as well. And he finishes, damn, I have never felt more called out and honored at the same time with our tag. I would hope honored. The intent is to honor, but I don't think there's anything honorable about our show. So there you go. Alan T. Girton says, I totally enjoyed the playfulness that Terry Farrell and Michael Dorn brought to Dax, and while I am sure they had to stick to the script, it feels like they were given free rein to play and really show the loving relationship. Yeah, I think I read that too, that there was a bit of an improvisational spice to what they were doing there. That's a very good point. You could sort of tell the actors are having fun.
Yeah.
in a way that you don't always see on Trek.
Well, and, chemistry with your
Yeah.
scene partner, be it antagonistic or protagonistic, is, we'll talk about that this week, won't we?
Yeah, we sure will. Alan finishes on a more personal note. I very much enjoyed Mike's analogy of marriage as a theme park ride. My wife and I will be married 34 years this May. Congratulations.
Yeah.
34, wow. And while the ride has been a great deal of ups and downs, we're enjoying it together. Forgot my stem bolts. 85. Yeah. Life is a highway. I'm gonna ride it all night long. Yeah, there it is. All right, what do you say we talk about the episode Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night? Because the title's too long.
Yeah, that's not on you, man.
That is on, who that's on? I'll tell you exactly who that's on. That is on Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler, who wrote this episode. That's on you. Yeah, this graphical problem, I hope it bothers you, because you wrote it too long a title.
I'm sure they're up all night thinking about it.
Says a guy who once wrote a show called I Got Fired, a semi-autobiographical revenge musical.
Yeah, SEO.
Exactly. All right, so this aired on April Fool's Day, 1998. Mike, did you ever do any April Fool's Days in high school?
No. Not that I recall. I'm sure we did, because we were idiots, but not that jumped to mind. Great story, Mike.
Yeah, great segment. Wow, nailed that. It was fun. It used to be fun.
April Fools used to be fun at the beginning of the internet, when memes and things were like you could fake people out. But now everything's BS. So
everything's fake. So yeah, exactly. But in improv, you have yes and no but and nah. Okay, so the top song. You're gonna pay for it now. You're gonna have to sing the classic Casey and JoJo, All My Life.
Really? All my life, I waited to reboot again because Keith crackles.
It's not your fault.
And I gotta update my video driver again. Plus my fat cat sits on my keyboard. All right, I only knew a couple of notes, so.
I didn't know any of it, so that we're all, where we are now, Mike.
Where are we?
Lost in Space, which was the first movie to break Titanic's streak.
Oh, yeah, the remake of Lost in Space.
The remake of Lost in Space, after Titanic just dominated for so long. We'll never have a cultural moment like that again in cinema. Mm-hmm. I don't think.
Yeah.
Mike, what was on TV tonight?
Well, Keith, I rebooted, and now all of that information is gone. So
you don't know. Well, I'll tell you what Voyager was doing. Mm-hmm. They were doing the episode Vis-a-Vis, in which Paris, he might get himself in a little bit of trouble with a shapeshifter.
Mm-hmm.
Keep an eye out.
Definitely all.
Keep an eye out for that. This episode was directed by Jonathan West, who last directed the episode Rapture. And, as I mentioned before, was written by showrunner Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler. They brought in the big kids to work on this episode. And we're going to ruin it by doing something trivial. Now, Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia.
2, 3, 4, 1.
Okay, so the term comfort women was used by the Japanese during World War II for Chinese, Korean, and Philippine women forced to be sex slaves for their soldiers.
Interesting.
Yeah, dark. But, so much of the Cardassian Empire stuff feels very influenced by World War II, and usually they've been stand-ins, for the right. Now, this is like an allusion to the Japanese at that point. That's interesting. During Dukat's transmission to Kira, Federation LCAR style interfaces are seen barely visible on the wall behind him, indicating that that Dukat is still using the shuttlecraft he stole in Waltz. So somewhere, like, Dukat's just sort of like spinning around in a shuttlecraft, causing trouble.
I mean, that seems like his whole. You know who he reminds me of now at this point is just Mr. Claw from Dr. Claw from Gadget. He's just in that ship, just like with his cat twirling his hand, and he's just making mischief.
I never watched Inspector Gadget. I think it was on NBC, so like it wasn't a channel that I got.
Keith checks Plex in 20 minutes.
I'm not gonna watch.
I loved Inspector Gadget. You know what? Inspector Gadget was like the modern Mr. Magoo, right? Because we had the Mr. Magoo, but so it's a detective Keith, right? And he's got all of his gadgets in his hat, and so he has to say like "Go Gadget."
I remember the song.
Yes,
yeah.
Go Gadget Plex server, and like one would pop out of his hat, and he had to do all these mysteries, but he didn't really solve anything because he was a bumbling fool, as is the trope. So his daughter, Penny, was actually the one solving the cases, but she was so heartfelt that she would let her dad think he was doing it. And she had this cool dog named Brain. And, I just thought it was a fun name for a dog. Very smart dogs as well. This segment, What Was Inspector Gadget About? Brought to you by Not Enough Sleep.
Go Gadget, waste 5 minutes of my life.
Cool show, though. I'm going to watch it again.
All right, well, there you go. This is interesting. The assassination attempt to which Dukat referred to in Waltz could be this one seen in this episode. It says it occurred on his 1-month anniversary, and given the chronology established in this episode, that would seem to fit.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Great continuity there. So this episode began life as a very different type of story than the one it ended up becoming. The original idea was to do a show based on the Nazi doctor Joseph Mengele, who was notorious for performing bizarre and barbaric experiments on concentration camp inmates during World War II. Oof. In this episode, the ghosts of Bajoran children were to begin appearing on the station, and the crew would come to believe that they were ghosts of children killed by a Cardassian scientist during the occupation who carried out research on them. However, turns out they aren't ghosts at all. The doctor was in fact sending the children into the future to gather information for the Obsidian Order. However, the writers couldn't make the story work, and it was abandoned at the last minute. That is so unbelievably dark, but I love that as an episode.
That's pretty great, actually.
Like, I don't know why they couldn't make that work. I mean, other than it's bleak, but like, okay, yeah. How do you? I mean, I guess all right. So why didn't it work? So I'm putting on my writer's hat. How did they save the children? Because it's Star Trek, you'd have to save the children.
Well, not only that, but you have to check your illusions, right? I think that should I go back in time and kill Hitler is broad enough stroke that it's not drawing too much of an illusion that like brings you too into the minutia of that atrocity, right? Because those are tricky hurdles. You get to Mengele and like performing surgeries on prisoners is a tough.
But that's happened lots of times.
Yeah,
like that.
Right.
That is not the only precedent for that. I think it really is fantastic setup. Fantastic. Oh my God, they're being sent to the future. How do you fix it? How do you within the integrity of Star Trek fix it? Because you can't save the kids and mess up the timeline. You can't kill the doctor and mess up the timeline. That breaks the temporal time prime directive. But then it's also Star Trek. You can't just be like, go home. Good luck.
I think we ended up with a pretty good episode.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. No, we got there. But it's you want to know who else? It's pretty good. I would say pretty great. The spoiler shouting we do aside, we love you guys profoundly.
We love you mostly because you're putting up with whatever's happening with Keith's audio and that weird buzzing and beeping that happens randomly, and we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna, next week, Keith, we're gonna work on Skype. We're gonna try Skype again. We're going back in time.
Skype? Oh, Jesus.
They do allow NDI now, so we'll see. Maybe it'll be better. We will see.
We'll see.
But thank you to Brian Kilber-Biersick, Peter Benke. You know what? I'm not gonna say anybody's name this week because clearly I can't talk.
Because you couldn't get through the first one.
But listen, look at these folks. Look how much we love them.
Read.
Just feel our love
of fantastic people.
And just wait until next week when there's a sound that goes with this. Oh my God. Oh, we should have waited until tomorrow. Anyway, we didn't. We're here now, and we're gonna finish. Thank you to our patrons. No, seriously, thank you. Oh, and for those of you who are curious, yes, I didn't get to stream this week. Probably for the best, as my internet is telling me. But I've heard the loud and clear that 18 and 19 people are excited about. So I'm going away. So I think might actually do a double feature next week. So stay tuned. I'll post that. And we're going to do a double feature watching episodes 18 and 19.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Should I not do that?
19
is a biggie, right?
Yeah, we might need to do it together.
Well, then maybe
you know what? It might be better if you're going away that we just take a week off.
It's that big?
So that we can give 19 its time and space.
Well, I mean, we're still going to release the episodes.
No. I mean, like, just to make sure that we have we give it the full time and effort. Folks, what do you think?
I'm going to give if I watch 2 episodes back to back, how's that not the full time and effort?
What? I'm just saying, like, because we gonna want to have the conversation fresh. We're gonna want to do the whole thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so regardless, I will stream 19, which is what I think people are excited about. So don't sweat it. Regardless of what the scheduling is.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We will definitely give it the respect it's due. And now that we put so much weight on it, Mike's gonna be like, is it really that good? Like, why is everyone talking about this? Like, we're gonna overhype it, and then it's not gonna be fun. So we're gonna come in like for a nice B+ episode. You know what I mean? All right. So our guest. This is not a B+ episode.
Where we put patrons, it always throws me. As I feel like that's the next thing into.
It is exactly the thing every single week. But you know what? For you, I'm going to rearrange it so you don't have to think. God. Well, actually, because next week we're not going to have to worry about it because we're not going to have any patrons.
Oh, no. No, come on. Don't leave me.
Our guest stars this week include Leslie Hope as Kira Maru. All right, so this is such a specific time period. Do you remember who Leslie Hope is? And how, for a brief moment in our cultural lexicon, she was a very important figure?
I don't recall, no. She did look familiar, though, I'll say that.
Looks super familiar, although it's because of her hair. She does not look like her most iconic character. And she shared a very important, very buzzy season on television with Penny Johnson-Gerald.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
In the first season of 24.
Oh, I gotta tell you, I'm not a big 24 person.
I was so into the first season. I watched it multiple times, and I didn't get out of the third season.
Huh.
Like, it was such a cool concept, and then it's sort of like, I get it now, and you start to see the cracks in the format.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe how long that show lasted. Anyway, Leslie Hope played Kiefer Sutherland's wife at the time. So in the first season.
What was I gonna say though? The guest star I definitely recognized but couldn't put my finger on was the sort of D-bag, like, underling of Dukat.
David Bowie.
Yes.
Which I almost read as David Bowie, but if David Bowie played Basso, that would be amazing. Also, we had Wayne Grace as the Cardassian Legate, Tim Dezarn as Halb Dreyer, and Thomas Kopache back as Kira's dad, now with wig. And, of course, Mark Alimo as Gul Dukat. Let us begin our episode. I'd throw to the bumper now, but I don't have to because we already did.
Yeah, it's true.
So our... What?
Hold on to your butts.
Keep your butts.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep that butt. Thank you very much. This teaser.
Can you imagine you finally get your big? You get the call. You booked it. You're going to be on an episode of Deep Space Nine. You walk into wardrobe and you're like, wait, it's a skin tight bodysuit where the latex is going to go straight up my A.
I mean, she's been in like 30 episodes as that background character.
Oh, well.
This is the first shot straight up the Lady A.
I mean, her performance is a bit cheeky.
All right. I was trying so desperately to come
find
up
some
with
puns
a
for
title
that buns?
of a. Well, no, I was trying to come up with a Lady A song, and I couldn't think of one. Anyway.
Not to be confused with Lady Bird Johnson, whose cheeks were less. You know, to be honest, I don't know. I can't back that up. So she might have had a great ass. Who knows?
Why did your brain go to Lady Bird Johnson? That is the most random pull from history.
Well, historically known for a very shapely behind.
Was she?
Can it be canceled?
I mean,
for objectifying Lady Bird Johnson.
I mean, you think it'd be the Johnson we're all focusing on. All right. I'm sorry, everybody. There's nobody watching anymore. We're like shouting into an empty room.
After hearing the buzzing.
The buzzing. Oh.
we're gonna remedy that.
Yeah, someday. All right. So in our teaser, Worf and Dax continue their cute offensive, debating about having a party in their quarters. Dax, of course, wants to party, and Worf is a no. Quark is bummed too, since he probably was going to cater it. That's all we have of the other cast, pretty much. He hands Kira some Bajoran lilacs, and of course, Dax needs to pry into her business. Turns out, it is Kira's mother's birthday, and these were her favorite flowers. Kira never knew her mother, since she died in the camps when she was 3. Kira goes back to her quarters, where she gets a disturbing secret call from none other than Gul Dukat, who is still on the run in the shuttle he stole in Waltz. And Dukat says, that's not why I called. I want to help you, Major, the way Captain Sisko helped me. Captain Sisko gave me the clarity to see beyond the lies, the self-deceptions that were controlling my life. He helped me to see the truth about myself. And now I'm going to do the same for you. Dukat is like that person who is in therapy for the first time, and they have been in therapy for 3 months, and it's like they've made some progress and they're so excited about it, and then they go out trying to therapize the world because they're so into it. Having been that guy, I recognize it.
But evil.
But evil. Yeah. So Dukat reveals that he knew Kira's mother. And he proves it with a bunch of very detailed information. In fact, he says that she did not die when Kira was 3, and that she left Kira's family to be with none other than Dukat, and that they were lovers until her death.
Yeah, I had to go back and rewatch this phone call after the episode, because, you know, the big flip at the end is that the message that the dad gives verifies some of the story. So I'm like, oh, was he lying in the beginning? So the answer is yes, by omission, right? He leaves out that they were chosen for him and brought aboard. Like, there is just enough truth to mind F her, but also no. Right, like,
and that's the thing. Like, everything he is saying is factually correct and also incredibly deceptive and manipulative about the context. But that's Dukat, right? So Kira,
and I don't want to get too deep into it right now, but we've talked about narcissists a lot, right? But one of their skills is that even in their own brain, whatever lies, or I don't even call it a lie, or whatever alternate reality that they have crafted to bolster, to do all the narcissist stuff, right? To not get too into the weeds. I don't think it's just to mind F her. I also believe he now believes that is the history.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure. I mean, like, it's the...
Well, because he wasn't party to the go and get the comfort ladies, right? They were just there for him. So
but he told them to go get them.
I understand that, but he didn't have to see it, and therefore, in his brain, it can be unsullied, right? She's just at this party.
Yeah, at this very moment, Trump is doing his first cabinet meeting, and it's televised live. And I think we're learning in both cases, When somebody says, I love you, at that point, a narcissist erases the gun and only hears the I love you. So, in Act 1, Kira starts researching as much as she can about her mother. On Ops, Kira stumbles across Bashir and O'Brien planning to play the Battle of the Alamo in the Holosuite.
Hold on, Keith. Sorry.
Ooh.
Hey, I always cut these, but while we're going through these...
It looks so pretty.
You know, when you're doing a scene, or when you're writing a story, right? There's the important thing we always talk about is intention, right? What is the character's I want? What am I trying to achieve in this particular moment? What's right? So it did not. You could say so my question is, what was Dukat's I want in that scene? Was it just to say happy birthday, right? Or was it just to F with her psyche because that's where he's at to? Or did he think, because in his crazy now, he's think there's, like with the Cisco thing, was there an quote unquote altruistic desire for him there? Because obviously it had to serve him, right? There's no...
well, I think...
There is no altruism when it comes to narcissists like that, but... So like,
no,
what
but
was
in his own head.
Correct.
So I think subconsciously, the real truth was he went with Kira.
Yeah.
He wants to mess her up and manipulate her and destroy her concept of self and family.
Right.
And just hurt her because he knows he has something that he can hurt her with.
Right.
I think in his delusional narcissist mind, I think he probably is trying to do what he thinks Cisco did for him, and it's like, hey, I have learned that if I live in the real world, if I'm honest with myself, then I will lead a better, more genuine life, and the only way Kira can do that is to have an honest understanding of her family history as well. And because I think Dukat genuinely believes that she was in love with him, that it's sort of going back on his, like, I admit that I'm evil. There's still that part of him that wants to, like, no, your mother loved me.
Right.
So clearly I wasn't
because his
that
subconscious is clearly wrestling with the rejection he's faced with Kira this whole time.
Right. How can you reject me when your mother didn't? And, like, I
would argue... Hold on. I meant to bring this up, and I'm glad I remembered. I would argue that because of his contrarian nature, let's say, that in some of those earlier episodes where he was making overtures to her and she was shutting them down, that would have been the time we would have first learned, hey, I knew your mother. Like, there was no reason for him to keep that secret. So the fact that this is just coming up now is it seems a little retrofit.
It is a little bit. And I agree with you. I think that when they were doing all of that, they hadn't written the story. They were not aware of the story. So, like, it is practically a wormhole. The way I fix it in my head is that, as disgusting as it is, I think Dukat wanted to do both.
Or he thought that if she knew that, it would be a deterrent, right? Like, you don't...
It would be a deterrent.
I don't want to say the term, but, like, you don't want to...
It's grim. I mean, Dukat's, but I can see why Dukat would hold off on saying that, at least until he didn't have a shot with Kira.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it was and he's not, because again, like earlier this season, it got pretty grim about him sort of forcing his way.
Yeah.
Now he's not in a position to charm or force, so he might as well destroy. Which is, again, the narcissist thing. If I can't charm you, if I can't get you to love me, I must therefore destroy you.
Yep.
And this is how he could do that. So it tracks in that way. So anyway, Kira is not charmed by Bashir and O'Brien talking about the Battle of the Alamo. She coldly tells them to get back to work. It is very clear she is not in a good mood. Later, she goes to Odo too, but Odo, being Odo, asks her what's going on. And he's the only one she's going to open up to, but she won't tell him what's up. But he does give her some excellent advice. Well, if you don't want to talk about it, perhaps you should consider doing something about it.
Awesome.
Good friending, Odo.
Yeah.
Really good friending. So Kira tells Sisko what's up. Sisko is naturally pissed she didn't tell him that Dukat reached out and communicated with him. That's a pretty big breach of security and protocol. What she wants Sisko to do is pull some strings as the emissary to allow her to consult with the Orb of Time. She wants to go back in time and see what happened. Kira says, "This has nothing to do with the Federation. I need your help as the emissary, not as a Starfleet captain. The emissary can see to it that I'm allowed to access the orb. After that, it's up to the prophets. If they feel my request is worthy, they'll send me where I need to go. If not, then I'll have made a trip to Bajor for nothing." And Sisko asks a fair question. "And what if they do send you back? What then? How can you be sure you won't interfere with the timeline?" And Kira says, "The prophets will be guiding me. Nothing will happen without their blessing." Which I think asks one of the major questions about the episode. Because we're doing time travel, like, she, in that moment, could have killed Dukat and chose not to. Right, so I think this is an open question. I'm curious what you think, Mike, and what everybody here watching will think. And that is, do we think that the prophets nerfed this time travel experience and made it so either through guiding Kira's actions or by putting this in read-only mode, put it in a way that she could not actually influence the timeline, and not kill Dukat? Like, there's no way that Dukat would have come out of that dead, even if she'd killed him or not, or were they in charge of it? Open question.
Well, for the sake of the agency of the episode, I'd like to think it's... I mean, the way they present it here is that she says it's up to them to either let me go back or not. So they let her go back. I don't know the answer to that, nor do I think it's that important. It does actually, my actual feeling at the end of the episode was that it was the latter, that it was sort of read-only mode, because her decision at the last minute doesn't quite feel...
To save Dukat felt weird.
Yeah, her agency...
To save her mother, for sure.
Yeah, her age... Yes, but she would have made that decision prior... I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. It felt a little nerfed, I would agree. But that said, I think of all of the Trek thus far, at least in my experience with Trek, of all of the MacGuffins to get us to time travel, this was the most, or this was the least, felt the least MacGuffin-y. Because we've seen what the prophets can do. We know that they are non-linear temporal beings. We know that they have the power to do so, and it was not a guarantee. They could have refused it. So I actually liked it as far as a time travel device.
Yeah, interesting. So in Act 2...
And the fact that she had to go to Sisko for it and get permission and ask his guidance, I thought that was neat.
It makes sense to me. Like, and, you know, we know non-linear time, blah, blah, blah. We know that they can. So it is not like a weird technical accident has to happen.
And I also see, and we don't spend a lot of time on this, I also see... I think it's really neat. You know, I think the focus on Sisko is often the first black captain and such. But really, what I find with some of the... And him being a dad and all those things are interesting. But his dual role as Starfleet officer and emissary is really interesting and unique. And we've only had a handful of times where we've seen him operate fully as emissary. Like, embrace it, not question it, and behave... And like once was in the caves that one time, and this is another one that stands out.
Yeah, well, and it also shows Sisko's evolution in his acceptance of being the emissary, let alone acting as the emissary. And you're right, they have 3 relationships here, right? Because you have Sisko as her captain, boss, Sisko as her emissary, but you also have Sisko as her friend.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot going on in their relationship. Like, more so than anybody else, right? Because nobody else thinks of him as a religious figure. So in the camps, Kira is... Oh, yeah. So she goes to Bajor and opens the orb. Mike, did you ask JD which orb Kira has behind herself? Is it the orb of time, of prophecy, of...
Well, right now it's the orb of the battery died, so I have to replace that. But I think it's...
Orb of replace the battery, yeah.
I haven't asked, but now I know we will receive.
We're going to have to.
Yeah.
JD, which orb was sent to Mike?
Well, the time
He's gotta
orb
know what
is
he can do with
clearly purple, so once I get the light back on, we'll know. At least the color
Oh,
coding.
good point. Yeah, good point. So Kira is zapped back in time and arrives in the refugee camp in a cave way back when she was 3 years old, and she sees her parents and her young self. And in here, we learn they're all starving and desperate, literally starving, and the gangs are trying to steal what little food they have.
You know, I want to go back, Keith, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
No, you know what? I'll wait. Let me wait a second. Be hyped for my comment.
Hyped.
A couple seconds, because it's about to happen. Yeah.
So Kira intervenes with some gang trying to steal their soup and beats up, I think, Dennis Matalone, whose job it is to get beat up in every one of these episodes, the stunt coordinator.
Okay, I'll use my point now.
Okay.
So
I'm glad to stick that pin in there.
yeah. So I'm gonna go back to your like read-only comment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that because remember when he was like try not to mess up the timeline? Like the first thing she did was beat up a bunch of guards and insert herself directly into the narrative of her family, right? And meet her young self.
She's inserted everywhere.
Yeah. So my understanding of the ripple effect or butterfly effect is that the timeline is already totally obliterated. Like already just because of this little incident, let alone the fact she's going to be her handmaid up on the shuttle. So my guess is the tinkering wasn't going to have too much impact. Now, had she blowed him up? Yes, but she didn't, so it's okay.
Yeah, but it is actually interesting you use the word handmaid because this episode is very Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very much, real life in 5 years. So anyway, Kira ingratiates.
Looking for a good time, everybody. Jeez.
But I had to stop watch. I was like, it's time for me to like watch this, and I had to stop because I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. So anyway, Kira ingratiates herself with her family, but hides her identity, of course. Then they're interrupted by a Bajoran collaborator douchebag named Basso, who announces that Tarek Noor is nearing completion. And they're going to kidnap some comfort women to serve as sex slaves for the Cardassians stationed there, led by none other than Gul Dukat. So interesting to know. Here we are, brand new station.
You know what they could have done later on, which they didn't do, is, yeah, she doesn't blow him up, but it would have been cool because she works on Deep Space Nine. She has an intimate knowledge of all of the stuff.
Right.
She could have easily just drawn up a map and sent some blueprints over to collaborator guy.
That's the first thing he asked for.
Yeah, and then just like let that sit, play the long game on that.
I wonder, she probably knows some of the command codes.
Yeah, it's Kira 321 or whatever. Try that.
Kira 111.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's all right. So I have one quick wormhole. It's not a wormhole. It's a question.
Question.
That was so. You timed that so well. I thought you actually made the bumper question.
No.
So we know that they're in the camps.
Yo,
right?
what time's your out, Keith?
1:50.
Okay, let's roll.
Yeah, we gotta go.
Yeah.
We're gonna be real fast. But like, we know they're camps. Why are they in caves? Like, if you're gonna like keep people in in internment camps or whatever, caves feel like a very inefficient place to be. The cave set was just sort of already built, I think.
Yeah, the matte painting wasn't great this week, so they were like, just stick them in a cave.
The same map pattern we use 100 times.
Yeah.
But
looks
anyway.
hokier now because I think the CG is better.
Quite possibly. So anyway, inevitably, Kira and her mother are among the women torn away from their families, whose only recompense will be extra rations. We arrive on Tarek Noor, at this point still in orbit of Bajor. And weird little technical nerd thing, we never actually see the station in orbit of Bajor in the pilot. It was the only time that it is there because they couldn't composite the two of them together at that point. So you would show the station, then show Bajor to make us think they were in orbit. But now they could actually do it and show the station directly with Bajor behind. So Basso says, you will find food, quarters, eat as much as you want, and make sure you get a good night's rest. You'll want to look your best tomorrow. And feel free to linger as long as you want in the sonic showers. Cardassians value cleanliness. What a charmer. Kira and her mother are assigned quarters filled with food. Kira's mother, starving, is delighted to find fresh fruit. Kira is only interested in making contact with the Resistance. Her mother eventually breaks down in tears, and Kira discovers a scar on the side of her face that Dukat had mentioned when he called. And she says, I failed to show a Cardassian soldier the proper respect. And Kira says, I think very wisely, we all have scars of one kind or another. The next morning, Basso has assembled all the Bajoran women, now dressed in fancy dresses. And he says, well done. I can hardly believe that you're the same women I met yesterday. In fact, you're not. Your old lives have ended. Your pasts have been erased. You have one purpose and one purpose only, to provide comfort and care to the Cardassian officers stationed here. Do that and you'll want for nothing. Fail, and you and your family will be sent to a labor camp.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really interesting to have a Bajoran be the heavy here.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, the collaborator. This is exactly the collaborator that Kira hates so much. And it is particularly despicable. But this speech is interrupted by Dukat, who makes a big show of sticking up for the women. He gives a classic Dukat speech, trying to cast himself as the benevolent hero. And I do wonder, how old is Dukat?
Yeah.
As he does not appear to
know.
have aged at all in 30 years, which is not necessarily a wormhole, because
we don't see a lot
know
of
how long
old Cardassians.
Yeah, Cardassians
In Duet, we
might
did.
age at a different level. Yeah, like we have seen some old ones, but we don't know how old he is. He could be 300 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Vulcans are very long-lived. So he notices Maru's scar and also makes a big performative show using a dermal regenerator to remove it. And it becomes clear to Kira here that perhaps Dukat was not lying to her, because I don't think Kira knew about the scar at all. So in Act 3, later Kira...
You know what I was thinking about at this moment? I was thinking about... So he said he was with her mom for what, like 30 years or something crazy like that? 7. Okay, not 30 at all. Mike doesn't pay attention.
He actually never says how long. We find out later it's 7 years. He says until her death.
So also we know he had that daughter with that other... He was... Clearly, and the guy references in a couple moments in this scene how he does this as his song and dance to get his people to fall for him. I'm sure he has affection for them for sure. But my point is that he had to juggle a lot of lives, right? A lot of lives and wives and concubines and such, and partners and things, and keep all those stories straight. He just has created quite the web.
He has, and I know it's not true because we saw the grave of the mother, but like, it did make me wonder, is there any world in which Ziel
was her sister?
Is Kira's sister?
Yeah.
Because like
half
we didn't
sister, I guess.
Half sister, right? And like it doesn't seem impossible. Although I think it's too long ago, because if this was 30 years ago, then Ziel would have been older. But certainly somebody very similar to her mother.
Right.
So later, Kira and Maru are at a party for the Cardassians. And Maru says, the prophets, I never realized they had such a sense of humor. When I was a child, I would dream of having enough food to eat and pretty clothes to wear. And now look at me. I have everything I ever wanted, and I feel horrible. It's sort of funny in a horrible sort of way. I suppose if I can survive starvation, I can survive this. And I think it's a good reminder, and it wasn't until this moment that I was reminded that Maru has spent her entire life under occupation. She doesn't remember a time before this happened, which is grim. A drunk gull comes up to each of them, and they are just as gross as you think. Then Dukat enters, spots Maru being groped by said drunk gull, And he pulls him off and comes to Miru's rescue. He says, "Escort this woman back to her quarters. See that her privacy is respected. No one will disturb her. I only hope you won't condemn all for the boorish behavior of this one man." And the legate, talking to Kira, tells her that Dukat performs this dance every time one of the Bajoran women catches his eye, but that Miru now has been chosen and is now off limits to everyone else. Gross.
Yeah.
Later, Kira extracts herself from the drunk Cardassian and returns to Miru's quarters to discover that she is moving in with Dukat. She tries to fight them, meaning the Basso and the other guy, and they toss her into the Bajoran ghetto. She has been fired as a comfort woman. So in Act 4, we find out weeks have passed. So Kira has lived like full weeks here in this flashback. Crazy concept of time, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of what O'Brien went through. We fast forward through that, but can you imagine like living weeks in the past? So Kira is now working in the ore processing center, and she's made a friend who tells her that Miru has been on vacation with Dukat. He calls her a collaborator, but Kira defends her. She's a comfort woman for the Spoonheads, isn't she? So was I. For a day, but I've been watching you. You have no love for the Spoonheads. We find out he's in the Resistance and wants Kira to help. He's planning something, but before we can find out, Basso comes in and summons Kira again, and she walks through a very fancy metal detector. And we find out that Kira will now be Miru's companion. And she says, and Miru talks about Dukat. It's true. He's very different from what I expected. Don't let the smile fool you. He's still the enemy. It's not that simple. Miru, listen to me. While you're in here playing parlor games, he is busy carrying out the extermination of our people. That's not true. He's written to the Central Command, urging them to rethink their policies toward Bajor. I wouldn't care if he played you a holo recording showing him on his hands and knees begging the Central Command to end the occupation. It would still be a lie. Like the first night when he saved you from that gull that wasn't real. He set the whole thing up to win you over. He told me. He tells me everything. You just don't know him. He's promised to help them and to see that they're given food and medical supplies, meaning her family. That still doesn't make it right. Your husband. I've forgotten him. What do you expect of me? To kick and bite every time Dukat comes near me? What would that help Taban or the children? And Kira calls her out. Is that what you're telling yourself? That you're doing this all for your children? The clothes, the food, the easy living? It's all for them? Are you that deluded? This isn't for them, it's for you. You like it here. You enjoy playing house with a murderer. Don't you see what you are, what you've allowed yourself to become? You're a collaborator. Because I shared your bed? No, because you like sharing his bed. Because you've fallen in love with him. Yikes. But, recontextualizing this scene, we find out that Dukat's there. And Dukat is overhearing this. So when I first conceived of it, I was like, Miru, oh my God, you sort of are what Kira is accusing you of. But at least for the beginning of it, she's saying that knowing Dukat's listening. And I think that it means that not necessarily is she telling the truth in that moment. Which is...
I'd actually think about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably some blended truth. Like, is she lying to tell Dukat? Maybe. Is she telling a little bit of the truth? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
So Nana is great here.
But,
and Kira, go ahead.
I'll quickly just say, by no means was I impoverished, but that first year and a half in New York City when there were some nights I didn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
The second you're hungry.
Yeah.
Things change. Motivations change. The second, imagine if a baby or even like a pet or something and someone that you love more than yourself enters the picture, and you need a way to protect them, things change, right? And so what the whole episode is about in this scene, yes, everything Kira is saying is provable, justifiable, understandable, her rage and such. Plus, add to that the weight of thinking about it all these years and then seeing it not, the hero or your parent not be the saint you thought they were.
Yeah.
Or that the way the prison you thought she was in doesn't look the way you thought it would. Doesn't mean, right? The black and white doesn't mean that gray area, that she isn't still fighting for her family. But she isn't still, but she also likes the comfort, or like, if you're gonna be imprisoned, there are worse prisons, you know.
Yeah,
so,
well, like, moral purity is also a privilege.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not facing scarcity, right? You know, like, it's really easy to judge Valjean for stealing the bread if you're not hungry.
Yeah. Well, also, you could cast, we've done this episode, but you could look at the things Kira has done that are justified in the global big picture of the occupation, but on a moral, personal level, perhaps not.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, you know, Kira is in a better position to understand than most because she did grow up with the same scarcity and the same hunger, but also she wasn't as hungry after she was 3.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to find out that she had, even within her desperate situation, she had more privilege than some of the other kids, and maybe, you know, obviously not knowing why, but possibly not knowing that she even had it. So it's complicated. It's interesting. But I think Nana is great in this scene. I think her righteousness is really well done. So Kira storms off and returns to the ghetto, where she goes straight to the resistance guy, who gives her a bomb hidden in an earring with a 3-minute timer. She's gonna take out Dukat. And he says, what of his Bajoran mistress? What about her? You can't risk telling her what you're doing, not even to save life. Kira says, why would I? Like you said, she's a collaborator. She deserves whatever she gets. Woof! Kira. She goes for it. She's gonna go kill her mom. So in Act 5, Kira has summoned Basso and asks him to be taken back to Maru. The bomb gets through the metal detector. Maru, who is cooing with Dukat, is happy to see her. Kira apologizes. Dukat sends Basso away and heads off to the other room, but first, he gives a chip to Maru. Kira sets the bomb to explode. Tick, 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 we have 3 minutes. But then, she sees that what Dukat gave Maru is a message from her husband, Kira's father. And he says, I know it's only been a few weeks that we've been back home, but you should see the children. It's like they've been transformed. Brian and Paul are laughing and playing together. They've never been happier. I swear little Nerisse must have gained 5 pounds. Of course, they keep asking for you. I've told them you're still at the refugee center. I think that's best, at least for the time being. I can't believe how much I miss you. Think about you all the time. You've saved all our lives. I hope you realize that. Every day I pray to the prophets.
Have I left
that
this
you'll
wormhole thing up the whole episode?
You sure did.
Yeah, my bad. But that does bring up a this message seems to be the catalyst or the fulcrum
that turns the whole thing.
That turns her to feel empathy and want to not do it. But also, Kira should be the first person to be like, he could have a gun to his head. Like,
right?
What is this message? Could be under duress? Like, yeah, there just is zero skepticism in the reading of this or whatever.
Is it AI?
Yeah, it's like, what? It was weird that she didn't. This whole last beat seems. I'm not gonna say it's convenient or it's not justified. It just didn't. They didn't do enough work to make me be like, yes, she has to do it. Save him now. Because listen, even if it's your mom, right? I hate Dukat enough. I'd be like, yeah, maybe still blow him up. Like,
there's 2 decisions here.
Yeah.
That she makes. The first one makes sense to me. Save her mother. The second one, why does she save Dukat? Like, there's no reason other, like, if it's to, because the timeline issue, I understand.
Or
why
if there
she'd
had
be
been a
like,
beat where the mom
I
was like, you
can't-
know what, I love him. And you're like, I can't take that away. My mother's happiness away from, like, I don't know.
Or something. Yeah, her, like, I think this beat, if we take it at face value, justifies saving her mom. It does not justify saving Dukat. Except for, I'll take, you know what? I'm going to fix the wormhole right
Okay,
now.
let's hear it.
It is only because she is with Dukat that her husband and kids are getting all of this.
Yeah.
They say that, you know, like even obviously being a comfort woman, they've probably got more rations, but I think the fact that she's with Dukat means they're getting a lot of extras.
Uh-huh.
And if she doesn't, you know, but if she saves her mom but not Dukat, I don't think her mom goes back to being a regular comfort woman. If not, she'd probably be executed because I thought she was part of the plot.
Right. Yeah.
Or something like that. So I guess it sort of makes sense in that regard. But I think what her father says here is interesting. It's like, every day I pray to the prophets that you'll find some peace in this new life of yours. I believe that even though in the worst of times, we can still find moments of joy and kindness. If you can find that kindness, hold on to it. So he's not just saying, it's okay that you're doing this. It's, I want you to have as much happiness as you can, even in the situation. So
this episode really made me love Dad, Mr. Kira.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, like, if you fall in love with Dukat, do it. Be happy as much as you can. Now, your point about whether or not this video was made in duress or whether the video wasn't real at all. Because one-way video. They're not allowed to have a conversation.
Well, except that Kira lived that half of the life, right? So she has... There is some context. It's not like she did have those privileges that were promised.
Maybe. I mean, she had some. She survived.
They weren't. She didn't grow up in the camps, right? She didn't grow up in the cave set.
Yeah, she did.
Oh.
She absolutely did. You know, all he said is that they were given more food. That's it.
Okay.
So.
You guys hear that? You hear the clanking of stem bolts falling?
Well, no, because it's. I don't think it cost the episode stem bolts.
I'm just saying
I think it makes it a more ambiguous situation.
All right, so we saved Dukat,
anyway,
and we
we're fine. We have a whole 15 minutes to do this. So Maru sobs and Kira watches stunned. She realizes the bomb is about to go off, and she saves her mother and Dukat. This ends the orb experience, and this is where I wrote, was time travel in safe mode? Unclear, because nothing seems to be changed in our real life, even though she did mess with a bunch of stuff. So Kira talks to Cisco, and she says, I've always hated collaborators. After all, what could be worse than betraying your own people? During the occupation, if I ever had doubts what their fate should be, all I had to do was think of my mother and how she gave her life for Bajor. She was a hero. They were traitors. It was as simple as that, or so I thought. Cisco says she did what she had to save her family, to save you. Make it right. Maybe not, but it was her decision to make. Kira says she found out that her mother survived another 7 years while countless people died. I'd love to know what context that her mother died in. Because she shouldn't have died in 7 years, right? Unless something went wrong or something. Like, that would be interesting information to know. But Cisco finishes with, tell me something, Nerys. If you hate her that much, why did you save her life? And Kira says, believe me, there's a part of me that wishes I hadn't. But the fact is, no matter what she had done, she would still be my mother. All interesting things to say. All right. Well, the dog will send us into my new favorite bumper in the world.
AlamarEmmys, there was more. AlamarEmmys, it's AlamarEmmys time.
Majestic.
Thank you.
Majestic.
Ugh.
Really.
Actually, shockingly close to correct pitch. Remember, I did that out of nothing.
That's right.
And remotely close to head machinations as the.
I mean, is it Mike's finest moment on the show? It might be.
It might be.
It might be.
That's either really high praise or the most depressing thing that's ever been said. One of the two.
Can it be both?
Yeah, you're right.
All right, let's talk best moment.
There's a lot of Kira. No shock. Nana is great in this episode. There's a moment. I'm going to do a really subtle moment, and I'll let you take a bigger thing. There's a moment when she first meets her mom, and she's stroking her cheek, and she's finding the scar. And there's so much happening. You're referencing back to what we just learned that Dukat said in the thing, and they're tying that together. You're watching a daughter peer friendship with her mom and show her the maternal instinct that she had not received from her mom because she didn't live long enough.
Yeah.
Also, for me, I'm living out that fantasy of like, what if I could be with parent I lost now? Like, so much is happening and they're not saying anything. There's
at the same age.
At the same age, there's an intimacy. There's so much happening with such subtle. Just because of the story we've built, the performance that we've had in the past, Nana's just presence, I just loved that whole moment. There was a tenderness, and there's so much possibility, and there's so much. It was teeming with energy. That was one of my best moments.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I think Nana's performance in here elevates the whole episode for sure. Honestly, I think for me, the best moment is the two scenes with Nana and Cisco. Because of the tri-cornered relationship that they have, but also, I think his defense of her mother, right? Maybe not, but it's her decision to make. Is just an interesting piece of wisdom there, that in all of this right and wrong and black and white and war and peace and whatever, and especially in a situation her mother taken into this, literally sex trafficked, right? And the extortion through food, extortion through life and death of the family, that what her mother lacks in all of this is agency, right? And Kira treats her mother as if she had all the agency in the world, right? And that happens in occupation, and how people react to being occupied, how people terrorism versus freedom fighting, whatever. Like it's we all sort of look at these things as though people had full agency. And that desperation doesn't remove agency. And yet, Cisco comes back and gives her some back. And says that she had a choice. She's, it is her choice to make how she handles what tiny little piece of, in this place, internal agency. Right? Because she couldn't have changed whether she was sex trafficked. She could not change whether or not Dukat was going to force her to be his girlfriend for a long term. The only agency she had was how she felt about it. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that Kira judged her for. That's the thing that Kira hated her for, because of how she felt about it. So it's internal agency that I think maybe could have been developed a little bit more, as opposed to what was happening. A little bit more explanation as to what was happening internally.
Yeah, because there's so
but
much
I like
nuance to understand it. And we're sort of going over into stem bolts as well.
Yeah.
One of the, along with my cult shows, I often am interested in those missing persons cases that you read about or watch about where people have been kidnapped with the doors not locked and
Right.
not
Stockholm.
for years, right?
Yeah,
Years and years.
yeah.
Well, you could have just gone across the street and escaped, but there's that implied threat to your family or that implied fear, and of course, obviously, tons of physical and mental abuse taking place as well. But it's funny how quickly after they're rescued, people who haven't lived that experience are easily say, well, why didn't you? They must have been, blaming the victim or not understanding the victim.
Right. We go from sympathy to judgment pretty
very
quick.
quickly. Yeah. So yes, I agree. Maybe a little more. They could have walked us down that path a little bit more, but at the same time, I think I have enough social context to have not judged her mom so unfairly. But we talk about this all the time. We talk about therapy. I think back about my father, knowing how flawed he was as a human, but also how much I loved him as a father and missed him. How do you marry those, and how do you also allow people to have human failings and not be exactly the hero you've built them up to be? That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I guess we're just so that all wraps together, and I think that was a really beautiful part, is to kind of explore that unmarryable gray area, right?
Yeah.
And her rage, I don't think that was just rage at her mom being a collaborator. I think that was rage at the loss, a rage at what could have been, a rage at, especially when the person you've set up as a hero doesn't hate the monster that you're big bad, right? You're Ahab or Whale, whatever side of the book you want to be on, this is if we had an O'Brien Must Suffer episode, this is a Kira Must Suffer episode.
Oh my God. It's so profoundly. Yeah.
But also I have to say, the Dukat of it all, right? Look, we had been, for me at least, flirting with is he, isn't he evil? Like not evil, but the different colors and variety and dimension. And then they're like, hey, you know what? To break it off at the end, super villain. But then somehow they're able to craft it again. Like even Kira at the end is like, well, maybe he wasn't lying entirely to her, and his sort of the manifestation of his narcissism and that he can be that person. I had a friend who was married to a guy, just not so much.
Who's a Cardassian?
That he just could, he's done so many terrible things to you. How do you keep being drawn to this charisma? And it's just
a charming narcissist.
Yeah,
it's dangerous things in the world.
So, and even in this episode, we end going, oh, but they're still able to mine some things. We will talk next week about the Nana visitor Markalimo of it all, because I just heard, there was definitely tension betwixt them, but not nearly as, I don't know. Let's talk about it when we get some comments next week. I wonder if there's some hyperbole at play. It seems like they were just like coworkers who were really both into character on set, but I don't know. I don't want to.
I have thoughts on that, but yes, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Give us some stem bolts, sir.
It was a lot of thinking on my part. The episode, it was good. I don't know why I feel like I didn't love it. I really enjoyed the exploration, but something about the episode, I don't know. I think the sum is less than the opposite of the normal thing. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Those are words I said out loud. I'm going to give it 69 stem bolts. 69, I hope, you know what? I'm just going to say 69 stem bolts and leave the joke out.
Just leave it at that. Yeah, I mean, boy, it's on the surface, it's really, really simple. And not a lot happens. Right? It's more of like it's a
thought exercise.
Happened. It's a thought exercise because Kira doesn't really do anything. All she does in reality is Kira gets more information.
You know what it is, Keith? It's sort of like one of those games that I like, don't get me wrong. In fact, it's one of my favorite genres, but it's a walking simulator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a Kira walking simulator. She's in VR and she's just sort of observing.
It is kind of, and like, does she have agency? I don't know. It's not really well explored. I don't think it tells us anything more about Dukat. Like, we know Dukat is this type of narcissist who will be, loved or feared, but definitely wants to be loved more than he wants to be feared, right? Is delusional enough to think that somebody abducted and taken from her family is actually in love with him. I think he genuinely believes that she was. But I do think something for Kira here, and that is the sort of deeper exploration of, because she's been obsessed with collaborators. This, like the only thing she hates more than Cardassians is collaborators. And that I think we see here the example of the type of collaborator that justifies her hatred in Basso, right? And then we're adding a little bit of gray area here, that the definition of collaborator is a little bit more complex, a little bit grayer than she would like to think, right? But I also think that a lot of her feelings are sort of based on a false choice, right? She's judging her mom because she has in her head here that her mother had the choice between giving Kira food or giving her a mother. And so like her mother chose to trade more food for having a mother for her children. Well, she didn't have that type of agency.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I think Kira has some wrestling to do with the amount of agency that her mother had in the situation. I think she learned that her mother made some sacrifice here. Not as much as I think she maybe wanted her mother to make more sacrifices, but I don't think she's really wrapped her head around agency.
Yeah.
And I think that even her mother, I think, had less agency than Kira did, because Kira was able to quit being a sex slave, right? Which I'm surprised by, first off, that she was able to get fired and thrown into the ghetto. And so I think Kira might be judging her mother based on, well, I was able to quit. Easy peasy. Well, again, she was quitting as a regular one with all the dum-dums, not the one that Dukat had chosen. So I don't think Dukat would have let her mother quit. And so I think, again...
You could argue even that last scene with the dad sort of giving her permission to enjoy it, because that's really the question, right? That's what separates her from the Basso collaborator from like a regular person, right? Oh, well, you're given this power and privilege, maybe you don't... Kira thinks you're forced into this situation, but so you shouldn't enjoy it. You should eschew it as much as possible. Whereas... Right. And then the dad gives her permission. You almost don't need that scene. I get why they did it, obviously, but I don't know. There are interesting ideas at play.
Yeah, I think there's interesting ideas here. I think Nana does a great job. I like seeing more of the past, on Tarek Nor and all that kind of stuff. And I have more thoughts, but I'll work it into next week's feedback, because I got a hard out. I got a meeting, so I'm going to give this 80. Self-sealing stem bolts. Yeah, which is more than I thought I was going to give it.
Yeah, I went down from what I thought I was going to give it. So
but
I think we should average up good.
Before I watched it, I was like, I don't know, it's sort of meh. And that's how the internet thinks about it. The internet gives it a 6.8, which is 143 out of 173.
That's almost exactly what
the internet
I gave
hates this episode.
That's almost exactly what I gave it. I didn't hate it.
So, interesting.
Yeah, maybe I was judged hard. Well, our average is good.
Yeah, well, we'll have to. I mean, also, what we think doesn't matter. So, there you go.
That's a good point.
Next week, we'll be talking about the episode Inquisition. Very exciting.
Speaking of Inquisitions, I'm making you a promise, folks. We're going to address this audio issue. It's probably annoying as heck. I'm going to try to do some cleaning and post. It wasn't
I can't hear it.
I know. We're going to try some things. So it's not, I know we say every time we're going to try harder. It's not for lack of desire or effort.
Yeah, we're going to do it. So there it is. Thank you for your desire to listen to this and your effort for sticking around this far. My goodness. Next week, Inquisition. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.
We'll try Skype, and if not, we'll think through some options. It's random, but it's like fuzz comes in and then it buzzes. It's weird. It could have been me.
Weird.
Maybe I should have reset my soundboard, but I think I did when well, whatever. We'll figure it out.
No. We'll sort it out.
Yeah.
All right. I gotta go.
Have fun.
I gotta go. Yep.